let's stay with this very issue and speak to Athol Williams, who she mentioned, and Lord Peter Hain. The question is, will corporate companies who were involved in state capture in South Africa ever really be held to account? This is what we're grappling with. And it's something that is concerning to many South Africans following the release of that first part of the state capture inquiry report. The report is scathing about the work that the US consulting firm Bain did for SARS. What is clear from both the Nugent and Zondo commissions is that Bain knew that Tom Moyane would be appointed as the SARS boss way before the public knew or any succession process got underway. Former Bain partner Victoria Masone had frequent meetings with former President Jacob Zuma, and the restructure of SARS was planned before Moyane or Bain stepped foot into SARS. That restructuring, we now know, was disastrous. It dismantled key units, and it's been blamed for serious inefficiencies that developed at ports, for example. The report found that the SARS evidence is a clear example of how the private sector colluded with the executive, including the former president, to capture an institution that was highly regarded and render it ineffective. Bain not only says it's disappointed that the Commission's report mischaracterises its role at SARS, it also says the report relied too heavily on the account of a single individual. That individual joins us tonight, whistleblower Athol Williams. We're also joined by Lord Peter Hain, who has called for global corporations to account. Thank you both for being with us. Let me start with you, Mr. Williams. You are that individual Bain says the report relied on too heavily. It says that you were not a Bain employee at the time of this restructuring. You came back later on. Just remind us of that, because you actually rejoined Bain to help it restore its ethical conduct. But remind us why you were very concerned at what you found once you got in again.
Yes, I believe that every good lie has some truth in it. And what Bain is doing here is exactly that. I call it Bain truth. It isn't the full truth. So Bain says I wasn't an employee at the time when they were dismantling SARS, and so therefore we should disregard my testimony. What they don't say is that actually my testimony relies on actual Bain documents of work done, of conversations that happened during that time. So while it's true that I wasn't an employee, I do have documents that Bain produced from that period upon which my evidence is based. So the fact that I wasn't there is completely irrelevant. In fact, a lot of what Bain says and explains is irrelevant. Bain says they apologize for being unwittingly involved. That's not an apology. Bain are denying their involvement. So Bain were consciously involved. The documents show that, Bain's documents show that they met with President Zuma, they met with Tom Moyane, they designed this process to dismantle SARS, they actively worked around the procurement rules and processes continuously. And in fact, we know that their contract that were offered, that they won, was for 2.6 million rand for 6 weeks. They stayed there for 2.5 years and earned 200 million rand. That's how much they worked around the procurement processes. This is not unwitting. This is intentional, conscious action to break the rules and to damage our society.
Lord Hain, do you agree? Because Bain has gone this route of deny. It has always suggested that it was basically duped by one rogue partner, Victoria Masone, who, by the way, for the sake of our viewers, has landed a great job in Milan in Italy. That's where he is now. Bain suggesting it didn't really know what he was up to or what motivated him. Do you agree that the evidence contradicts that?
I do. And my frank advice to Bain is, when in a hole, stop digging. Because I find their behavior and their stance since the publication of the report of the Zondo Commission, the first report, which was absolutely damning and detailed in its indictment of Bain's behavior and recommending that it is prosecuted and that it acted unlawfully. I find its response to that flabbergasting, frankly. Because any company, any reputable company, especially one like Bain and Company, which is headquartered in the United States, has offices in London and right across the world, is a prestigious management consultant company with its reputation at stake in all this. I find its behavior astonishing. I mean, it is even worse than those corporates that were up to their necks on the gravy train of the Zuma-Gupta looting. I'm thinking of KPMG and McKinsey and SAP, let alone the banks involved in the money laundering side of it. You know, at least McKinsey and KPMG offered apologies. At least their global executives flew to South Africa to try and put things right, and people were sacked. At least they came to engage with me in London in my office in the House of Lords after I'd exposed there what was happening in front of the British Parliament. With Bain & Company, there's a kind of virtually no admission that anything serious went wrong. They've offered sort of half-hearted apologies, and you know, I'm astonished at this brazen brass neck of theirs. And my advice, my friendly advice, if you like, though they may not see it that way, is simply to come clean to the South African public and to everybody concerned, admit their guilt, and try to put it right.
Yeah, and like our former guest was saying, the payback was nowhere commensurate with the economic damage caused by the destruction of SARS units. Mr. Williams, this raises a bigger issue. I mean, Bain has cast aspersions on your testimony, and there's also concern in South Africa currently about whistleblowers. The Zondo Commission talking about the need for protection. Just tell us about your personal situation. You went to the UK and said that it would be difficult to come back because you don't feel like you have any protection at all. Is that still the situation?
Yeah, nothing's changed. I had to leave the country because of concerns around my safety. We've seen the last few days 2 other state capture whistleblowers have break-ins to their homes, and so further supporting this idea that we live in constant fear. We live under constant threat, and there's no support from our government at all. I haven't received a single phone call, email, text message from anyone in our government in the last 2 years since I've spoken up. And can I just make a comment on what Lord Hain said? And what Lord Hain is doing in the UK is incredible, because it's trying to bring international pressure to Bain, which is what we need. Bain paid back fees they earned at SARS, but remember, they worked across our entire state institutions, including Telkom, Development Bank of South Africa, the PIC, the IDC, and that's where we need to dig, because once we dig there, we're going to see that SARS was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of state capture.
Yeah, and SAA, some involvement there has been mentioned. But Mr. Williams, may I ask for more? Are you suggesting that a company that still, whether we like it or not, enjoys a global reputation of sorts and gets huge business, may in fact be out to get you?
Well, I look at the actions Bain have taken. Bain applied to the Zondo Commission to have half my testimony, my affidavit, redacted. Bain tried to block my testimony at the Zondo Commission. Before that, Bain offered me large sums of money to never speak about Bain again. This I've got in writing. Bain offered me money where they'd pay me with no strings attached, no paper trail, sorry, not no strings attached, no paper trail. Bain constantly told me that I've signed confidentiality agreements, and so they will take legal action if I spoke up. So these are all actions of someone wanting to silence me. I'm not necessarily saying Bain are out to physically harm me, but I testified and implicated 39 parties. This is the extent of which Bain's involvement was. It wasn't just Bain, it was the 39 parties who were involved. And I've got no idea what they are planning and what they are doing. But one thing I know is I've had senior government officials tell me in writing that there is a coordinated effort to silence me and that I'm in the crosshairs. If you put all of that together, it says to me that there's a reasonable chance that I'm under threat, and no one's put a gun to my head. But I don't know about you, I'm not going to wait until someone puts a gun to my head before I act.
Yeah, and like you said, nobody... Sure, come in, Lord Hain.
Yeah, thank you. If I may just, both reflecting on what Athol said and what he's done over the last last month. I mean, I think he should be applauded. I think he should be praised to the rooftops by every decent South African citizen for telling the truth, for exposing what's been going on, the systematic attempt by a global corporation, Bain & Company, to damage the South African Revenue Service, therefore damage its ability to raise the funds from all sorts of people, including dodgy people like the Zumas and the Guptas, who should be paying their taxes like other citizens do and supporting the society. He should be praised for that. And again, I come back to Bain. You know, they've poured rubbish all over the Zondo Commission, which is an astonishing thing for them to do. And now they're trying to undermine Athol Williams' reputation when he should be, as I say, applauded and held in high esteem by the business community in South Africa. And it's good that business leadership South Africa has finally come to its senses, and Bain will no longer has been stood down, as the diplomatic phrase seems to be, from its membership. The business community should come right out and condemn what KPMG's done, what McKinsey's done, what Bain's done, what SAP's done, what HSBC's done, what Standard Chartered have done, Bank of Baroda and others, because all of these global corporations were the conduits, the facilitators, the little helpers for this prodigious looting of South African taxpayers.
Well, Lord Hain, final question to you. What now? Because you've been calling for that accountability. Maybe adding to the lack of accountability has always been this idea that you can go and do things in developing markets that won't really be shouted on the rooftops. But I remember some serious global reporting about what Bain had done, about what KPMG had done, but seemingly no action. How do you wake up the world, as it were?
Well, it seems a mountain to climb to do it, but I'm determined to try. And Athol Williams is doing a great job in bringing the global attention to it as well. I mean, there was a very important editorial in the international business newspaper, the Financial Times, today, criticizing Bain, describing what's gone on. And Athol is held in high esteem amongst a lot of people who think business should be reputable, not reprehensible. So I'm trying in the House of Lords, and there's a debate coming up in a couple of weeks, in which I'm speaking, in which I will lay it out in detail to the British Parliament and to the wider audience that looks and listens to it, what exactly happened in this case. I will praise Athol for what he's done to try and improve South Africa and rescue it from this dark decade of looting, and I'm afraid the corruption that still continues.
Mr. Williams, then final question to you before that happens. So Business Leadership South Africa readmitted Bain to its ranks. It's now stepped away from business leadership, saying it doesn't want to deter from that business organization's work. But how, I mean, your comment on that, does that make you happy, or is it not enough? And then how do business groupings themselves become part of the solution in South Africa?
The fact that the board of Business Leadership South Africa readmitted Bain in the first place shows the ethical poverty of that group of leaders. And what they've done now is they've missed an opportunity to show ethical leadership in our country. What they've said to the world is that you guys worry about corruption and state capture. We as the business community will embrace corruption. No matter what our public statements say, we'll embrace Bain, who have acted unlawfully. In fact, the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa went further than the Zondo report. She said Bain committed serious crimes. Now, in my mind, if someone commits serious crimes, you take serious action against them. Instead, what BLSA offered them was a safe home. So for me, those leaders have shown despicable behavior against the interests of our country.
All right, thank you both for your time tonight. Whistleblower on state capture, Athol Williams, and then Lord Peter Hain, who has called for global corporations to account for what they were responsible for here in South Africa.